Hello! I'm Miss Tattoo Mask. The time of this recording is the 29th of January, 2023. It is 11:15 a.m. And I have a game to cast. And once again, it's not going to actually be that terribly long of a game, which is why I'm going to be able to do it now, because I'm quite tired, and I've got another cast I'm going to do actually for StarCraft. That will come after this one. So, let's hop into here, and it was performing like absolute... See the lag there? It was terrible. I'm going to see it performs a little bit better. And we hop in here, and I'll just make sure everything is wired up and working. I've already had to reset my fucking audio once already, because it was dies on me for no reason at all, and I've had it do that during casts and other stuff. So, tab out, push this over here so I can watch it. Close that, and we're good to go. Okay, so, Teen Girl Squads. There's a few things I need to talk about, and they may be a little challenging while I'm so tired, but we'll give it a shot. So there's a little bit of preface for this. So there's been some more changes to the map, fairly major changes, sort of like the next stage of changes. Again, I don't really have the mental capacity to keep track of the major changes of the last recordings, because those recordings are at the bare minimum like 2 weeks prior to these recordings, right? And I didn't record the last one because it wasn't really worth it. It was really one-sided. And I'll talk about that one at the end of this one, because there's context between the two of them. I'll bring it up later on. We'll revisit it. The changes were present for that map as well. Now, I don't recall every single little change. I just recall the really major ones. So the most major of the changes is that you no longer buy creep upgrades at all. So that's been a long, outstanding issue. Just, again, we're building the map for a specific group of people, and we're trying to make it, broadly balanced or whatever. But in any event, regardless, buying creeps is really hard to balance in this map, and it causes all kinds of problems with playstyles, right? Like we've talked extensively about, like, physical damage dealers having a really strapped early game because getting money is so difficult. That's more easy now because of the way that the bounty is distributed is now, a little more forgiving for people who are bad at CS. And particularly physical damage dealers who may not even be bad at CS, they're just going to have a hard time anyways. Especially like towards the mid-game, right? Where people start racking up AoE and stuff like that. Now, HKS has actually nerfed... I don't know if I mentioned this in the last cast, but HKS has actually nerfed some of the AoEs in this. And I believe he may have nerfed... I don't think it was the abilities, but it might have been the int scaling that he hit slightly. To prevent the nuclear levels of damage you would see when you would start seeing like 4, 5, 6 bongs. Now, in the last game that we played that is not casted, one of the reasons why I'm not bothering to cast it is because there was some abuse of items in that. And one of the items that was being abused, I believe, was a horde-only item that gave magic immunity for it was at least 10 seconds, maybe 20. It was an eternity. The Necklace of Spell Immunity. And early into that match, I had also discovered that there was a Staff of Silence that lasted on heroes for the default level 3 length or whatever. It was a fucking eternity. I sold that staff. High Zealot did not sell the spell invincibility item, the anti-magic shell or whatever. And it made the game absolutely impossible for me to win, amongst other things. The teams were also imbalanced. But there was a lot of factors in it. Like I said, I'll get into that in a little bit. But the spell immunity was particularly bad because I went caster. And the reason why I go caster is because I kind of feel like I have to. I have to carry the game in that way. It's that's the pressure that I feel. Because most often with the teams, it's going to be me feeling like I have to carry, right? I have to put in some degree of effort. Now, some of these games I've casted, I do something a little bit goofy. Sometimes, when I do that, it's because I'm not taking the game very seriously. I'm trying new stuff or whatever, taking like Incinerate or whatever. And you notice in many of those games, it ultimately comes down to like I have to make a decision that if I want to win the game, I'm going to have to transition my build, which you could do in this map, of course. In a lot of these games, it often feels like, especially since I've been trying to play against HKS, because since HKS is doing all the changes to the maps and has, he watches the cast and has, a developing understanding of the game and stuff like that, I feel like that balances out where I don't intimately know all the things going on in the map as well as he does at this stage, but our comparative skill levels will, if we're on the same team, it often feels unfair because the skill level of most of the other players is not going to be able to disrupt us that much unless we take really suboptimal builds, which absolutely does happen. For example, if we both go melee like Pit Lords or whatever, I often feel like that throws those games, right? So, and the result of that, the reasons for that has always been because of like the way the bounty works, creep upgrades. Ricky has many Frenchness about him, but one thing he always does is just upgrade the creeps, right? And depending on who's on the other side, they're going to just offload it onto some random person who may never spend them, right? And they're not going to keep up to it as he does. It's one of the strangest things about Ricky is how consistent he always does that, right? Always. Every single game. Every single time. He does that. There's been maybe like a couple games where they're a little lax on creep upgrades, right? But it's really rare. It's really... And this is across... I don't know when they started playing this map. It's well over a decade ago, I'm sure. And maps like it, right? And then, of course, all the way back to StarCraft 1 and tpcnet and stuff like that. So, Ricky's just like kept that up all those times. So it's very consistent, right? It's very reliable, very consistent. So you can always be quite consistently relying on that one team to be generally having their eyes on creep upgrades. And then there will be games where we would end up with, we tried to be a little bit more conscious about team balance in the last like year or 2 years or so. But I always remember the Wild West that we'd end up with teams that never even touch upgrades, and the game just steamrolls right away, right? And, the whole gold imbalance and tending towards AoE and stuff like that. So HKS went through the efforts of automating that. And this, when it first was implemented, of course, we adopt we adopt the Reddit trunk development method, which is wait until the very last minute to do a massive changes, like the entire creep upgrade system. He did it in like an hour or whatever before we played it. Just took a hammer to it. I remember it. And there's no testing, of course, because that's how we do things here in Lel Reddit Kek Burr. Just throw it live. That's agile, right? You gotta be agile. Think fast. So the Horde didn't really upgrade anything. And then in the second match, the Horde were still not getting melee upgrades because that's been a recurring issue too, right? Like that's resurfaced again where the Horde's upgrades would just disappear off their buildings. And sometimes the Alliance, but it's mostly been, the Horde damage upgrades would just disappear, right? They're just gone. Very strange. So to try to get past all that as well, because solving those problems has not been really that simple because they're Blizzard, right? It's unfathomable how this heap of shit ever managed to compile to begin with, much less play. And trying to get stuff to work in it, especially consistently, it's been a mouse. So I don't intimately remember the details of how the system works, but I believe that there are 2 sets of timers, one for enhancing the minion spawn rates, which I believe it crawls through a list, and then one for handling the weapon upgrades, which is its own separate list. And I believe they have separate timers, particularly since obviously, the knights and whatever, he tried to sort it out. I believe there's actually like 2 unit lists, and they were separated and it goes between them. It bounces between them. And they have a timer, right? So, again, not intimately familiar with how it works, but they're different timings. So the other thing that he wanted to do was try to push some map objectives off the lanes and back into the creep camps, which, especially like early on mid-game, the only people really clearing those are able to do wards. There really isn't much of a team incentive to go after them, unless in the rare case you're feeding money to somebody to buy items, which is more viable now because, more gold from bounty, and you don't have to dump all your money into creep upgrades either. You don't feel inclined to do that because it's not even possible anymore, right? So he didn't want to get rid of gold sharing. He made some argument in favor of gold sharing. I don't quite remember what it was, but it's a viable thing that we didn't really want to take out at this point. For better or for worse, right? Just leave it in for now. So yeah, you could pool somebody, try to clear these, and get a really early item of some nature. I think in most cases that's not going to make a tremendous difference. I can think of some abuse cases where that would make a difference. Obviously I'm not going to mention them now, but I'm sure that since I have mentioned that, people are going to it's going to click in their head what they can do to abuse that. The thing about this is that what he did is, as far as I understand, each creep camp, when a team kills them, they basically reduce one of the timers, or both of the timers, for the upgrades. And basically clearing out the camps will allow your army to upgrade faster. And in the second game, after the horde upgrades were fixed, the one I didn't cast, I remember taking a bunch of early camps in the beginning. There was some competition for the camps, but I was able to secure a bunch of them. And there was a noticeable push in our favor towards mid-game because our upgrades were more advanced. But then we lost control of the map because my team was quite ineffectual and quite useless past mid-game. And I wasn't able to do anything. I wasn't able to enter lanes anymore. And I certainly couldn't really contest the creep camps anymore. So at that point, we just died, basically. Just got swamped over. So there is absolutely, it's not a tremendous big difference. In fact, one of the things I'm going to be really curious about this game is how big of a difference it actually made, because I know that there are some creep camps getting cleared in this. Not super aggressively, but enough that I would like to watch the upgrades because I didn't really pay too much attention to them in the game. This is going to be another one of those lopsided games. So on the left side, we have Q, we have Ricky, we have Bill the Emu, who came alive for some reason, and we have High Zealot, who's back from his vacation in Western Taiwan. On the east side, we just have myself, we have HKS, and then we have Thyloli. So that's 4 versus 3. So all the players on this side, on the west side, I consider them fairly consistent in what they do, right? Like I talked about the players before. I consider them fairly consistent in what they do. I feel like that Q tends to explore a lot of different stuff. Like in the last game, the one I didn't cast, he did stuff explicitly to counter me going caster, because I went caster in the first game and he had like half of a build, and that was the game where the upgrades were completely fucked, right? Like we just washed over them. If we played again, I went the same build. He went like a hard anti-caster. That's one of the many things that fucked me over. And that's just because he's been paying attention. He does do some kind of experimentation or premeditation for these games. And I end up, like I said, I end up playing caster quite a lot. He has a very heavy bias. So he tends to take, I've noticed he's been tending to take counter builds in these games at this point. As time goes on, maybe different builds each time, but still very tailored towards anti-caster. And fairly consistent in that regard. The play is fairly consistent, High Zealot as well. A little bit more explorative in some respects as of recently. We haven't really seen him too much in the last while. And Bill used to be very consistent, but I feel like that since he hasn't played very often, he's kind of lost a lot of the, he used to be somebody who could perform fairly consistently mid into late game in a long game, like 2-3 hours. But I'm not so sure about that anymore. It's also possible the map has changed so much at this point because every month or so, some big thing gets knocked down. Like the creep one isn't the latest one. And he is not there to really like grow with a map, right? And then we had the last game I casted where I would swear that he was like smoking a bong or something. So I don't really know if I can really consider him hyper consistent anymore, because he doesn't play often enough at this point. And some of the play that he does is, especially in the last game, was very bizarre. And then we have Thyloli, who has had some mixed results. Especially being unable to really like find a game plan that worked for him and then stick with it and work on it. Like constantly hot swapping skills and stuff like that would be a constant thing for him, and items and stuff like that were going to be a struggle for him. I also had the impression that he wasn't really necessarily super environmentally aware on the map. And I also know that he's also really easy to tilt. If he gets knocked off tilt, he will probably never recover. That's just been a time eternal thing for him. He rage quits very easily. And we've also seen him evoke extreme thirst. Extreme thirst. So there are, however, some things I've seen him do okay. Received 1 gold. There's a few times, however, I've seen him perform relatively well. You know, especially in like comparison to the other players. So, but I feel like at best he's a wild card. But actually, in this game, I want you to keep an eye on him. We're going to try to keep an eye on him in this game, because this will be a very different game for Thyloli. So I contemplated what I was going to do. It's a 3 versus 4. I knew that the enemy team is going to be fairly consistent. I expected Q to take some kind of counter build, because that seemed to be the end thing he was doing. But at the same time, I kind of had to take a certain build, because Thyloli immediately went for strength melee. And even if he decided to go caster himself, it still wasn't going to likely be enough, especially early on. We were going to be looking at getting pushed early on, because there was going to be a 2v1 lane somewhere. So again, grabbing the early gem of True Sight, I just grab that a lot of the time because the early gold usually lets me grab it. And Infernal, don't even look at it most of the time. I think HKS has nerfed the mini Infernal a little bit, especially in mid-game. He had quite a lot of damage for his level, and that was, sometimes to me it felt like it was a little too much. So I ended up taking Forked Lightning, and Flame Strike, and Brilliant Aura. And I'm going to level Forked Lightning first, and then I'm going to level Flame Strike, and then, yeah. So Bill ends up taking Diffusion Flare, and Q is actually not going to be going too much of an anti-anything build. Q is actually going to go like a hard support. So the enemy team still has somebody that has mana burn. Bill will actually get feedback as well. And Ricky is actually just going to get early mana shield. No Brilliance Aura at level 1 though. You have more starting gold in this, so you can get 3 skill level ups right at the bat, all level 1 because of the level restriction. But you can get 3 skills. Ricky did not get Brilliance Aura as one of his initial ones while taking mana shield, so of course he has no mana. But Q is going to take Healing Spray, which may or may not have been buffed at some point in the past. It is actually quite strong, especially when coupled with Furion, whose innate ability is, I believe this one is just not the Rejuvenate, but the straight like burst heal that may also give mana. So obviously I have no kill threat against them whatsoever, and while they may not have much damage, they just shut me down pretty much. There was also going to be owls all over the place, which I figured was going to be an issue because they're invincible. And I was wondering if the Chain Dispel can work against them, but nobody really knows. So High Zealot is going to go with something more typical for him. He's actually going to go Forked Lightning, Mirror Image, and I'm not sure what else. I believe he gets Boulder. and maybe some other physical damage stuff. I didn't really run across him too much, so I don't remember off the top of my head. I wouldn't counter High Zealot too much because he won't really do much roaming. He's going to be going up against Loli most of the time here. Ricky will do the exact same thing he did in the game I did not cast. So in the game I did not cast, it was myself, Ricky, and Loli versus, I believe it was High Zealot, Q, and HKS. If it wasn't High Zealot, it would have been Bill. But I'm pretty sure that was High Zealot. I could be wrong though. And that game was extraordinarily one-sided. Ricky did the exact same thing in that game that he'll do in this game, with the exception that in this game he takes Mana Shield, and I don't remember if he took Mana Shield in that one. He might have. But, yeah, he went like Health Drain, I believe. Health and Mana Drain, maybe. And he just basically is a sustain tank. It was really annoying early on because they couldn't kill him. But obviously, a single target channeled ability does not scale very well into late game by design. HKS, normally taking Grommash Hellscream unless matches would usually take wards. I have to go AFK. Alright, I'm back. I had to take off and do stuff. Okay, back to business. I forget what I was talking about or what was going on. HKS attempts to chase the Frenchman well behind enemy lines. So something that HKS told me was kind of strange was those wolves, at least in their early levels, have pillage. And pillage was giving him like 1 gold per attack. I don't do a good job of avoiding diffusion flare, and it will burn basically all your mana because it has a high mana drain, because remember before you could expand your mana pool, right? The mana pool got changed to be hard limited to 750 for in-heroes and 500 for everybody else. That includes me because I am technically a strength hero Gul'dan. You know, your traditions and all of that. He was working on his traditions in the rear. And that's why he's a dumbass, but man, is he built like a tank. Suck him up. And so he's got that really, really muscular right arm and dumb as bricks. Absolutely dumb as bricks. Walk into Diffusion Flare at a high level, it's pretty much going to burn your entire mana pool on contact. It's even worse for summons with mana pools because their mana regeneration is just always going to be shit. You can't feed them bongs and stuff like that to jack up their int to try to make up for being bad at avoiding Diffusion Flare. And if it's fat like the Doom Guard or something like that, they're really not going to get away that easily. So they have 2 sets of mana drain already, but Bill will also pick up mana burn on top of it. So they will have 3 sets of fucking shit just to drain mana. There it is, right there. So Q seems to be devoting quite hard to support with a bunch of auras, and Ricky will actually get Howl of Terror, which won't influence too much on our team except for Loli, who will be going melee. I believe that early on he kind of takes a hybrid of different stuff, but later on he will devote more heavily to melee. He's actually going to get spiked Carapace early on, and I believe he gets rid of that, probably because most of the enemy isn't physical damage. So these two will generally stick together. You won't see them far apart from each other too often. Sometimes Bill will be separated from him, but Q being built completely support, stacking auras, heal, and some other abilities he'll get much later on. Yeah, he's just going to be glued to people's asses, healing them constantly. So early on, this may as well make Bill and him completely immortal because they can heal each other, and spell damage doesn't exist at this point, and the spell levels are too low to make a difference. We are going to start out leveling them because of the difference in the team sizes, but it's not going to be really that big of a deal at all. I believe that I'm going to get the highest levels in the game. As you can see, I'm actually double Q's level at this point, but I don't have the gold to really spend that on skills at this point. And the skills I have chosen, being Fork Lightning and Flame Strike, don't exactly offer much kill threat to begin with. Especially when they can heal over time, subduing the damage of Flame Strike, especially early on. And even getting kills on the minion wave could be really tough. So as you can see, as a result of that, and the bird's always giving vision, so the mortar teams don't suicide into the towers, this bottom is being pushed really, really hard. Really, really hard. Meanwhile, in top lane, Ricky will just basically never have mana because he took early mana shield and has no regeneration. And it's level 1, and it chews a ton of mana when he get hit. I don't think you can get that until at least minimum level 15, where you can just hammer skills into it and pump it up. And it's an ability that will help a little bit early on if you can just afford to lose the mana. But I feel like that you can probably get just a healing spell instead. It'll do you better early into the game. Speaking of healing, High Zealot will pick up yet another healing skill, which will be Chain Death Coil. That said, because of their aggressiveness in trying to dive me, Bill almost dies to the tower. HKS does die up here. Battle Lily has Impale, but he doesn't really have much follow-up for it, and he doesn't have much mana. And Ricky is just... Ricky's got to get in real close, so his horse can shit on him. Except Ricky's attacking the fucking... What is he doing? He's attacking the... Thought Lily really wanted it, but he thought better of it. I don't know about Ricky, honestly. So again, trying to stave off the inevitable, but yeah, not so easy. One of the side effects of the minions being upgraded automatically is you no longer will see that early fortified armor for the Horde. So, you won't get that strange, oh my god, artificial Knight Lameo. You won't get that strange interaction of making the other minions less effective against the towers, but making the mortar teams stronger. For better or for worse, right? You won't be able to get that for better or for worse. What it does mean is that you can't get the early fortified to stop the early lopsided pushes against you from heroes. Because now the hero damage against those towers is always going to be, you know, 50% versus the fortified, where it believe it is. Oh, it's still 50% against fortified. Well, I think it still improved their armor, if I'm not mistaken, right? But it was still effective against the minions. So it's 50% against the... No, I was looking at the wrong thing. Hero is 100% against heavy. Right. I was really confused. I was like, why is the hero 50%? It's because I can't read. I was reading the wrong thing. Yeah, so it's 50%. And I believe they may get some armor from the upgrade, if I'm not mistaken. I might be mistaken, though. Base armor 6, we'll see if or when it shows up. Two very low heroes here in the top lane. Not really going to do too much to stop Ricky from sucking that shaman dry. I'm just trying to sort of heckle this bottom lane, but I'm going to be relying on getting levels into my skills as a result. Those owls are restoring mana to keep them topped off so they can keep spamming shit. One of the changes I'm recalling now that HKS did is he put the boot movement speed baseline into the heroes and then nuked boots from the map completely as well. Because they were basically just a dead slot, right? We didn't really want to get into the stupid shenanigans that League of Legends had, especially because we don't have, you know, an upgrade system for items yet. So they were trying to harass me under the tower, but that's typically something you do when you have kill threat, which they don't have. So they're forced to go back, but as you can see, the towers are taking a lot of damage. But since they were focusing on me and not the towers, they actually stood a good chance of horsing down those towers at this point. Oh my god, he's getting pissed on by a horse. Oh, that's so lewd. I'm getting a little hot under the collar here. I never thought of horses so romantically until I became acquainted with Reddit. So Ricky still does not have any actual mana regeneration. He does have Mana Shield level 2. Ricky, as far as I know, has no source of actual damage either. He has Howl of Terror and Mana Drain. He sits there, drains mana to fuel his Mana Shield. In theory, it's in practice, obviously, we see him without Mana Shield most of the time anyways. I'm not really sure what I'm doing here. Oh, yes, I'm leaving. It's okay, they didn't know what I was doing either. Yeah, 3 members of their team have no actual kill threat at all. Ricky exists to drain mana. That's the full extent of his offensive ability. The Howl of Terror will be annoying for Thyloli and the minions, and that's about it. Q has auras, and those auras, offensively, are only going to benefit High Zealot, because Q is not going to be doing any damage either, and Bill is a caster, and Ricky doesn't even attack most of the time. However, you will notice it is High Zealot that took Brilliance Aura, so when they're paired up, it will help Ricky a little bit, but Ricky literally just exists to be punched. He is literally... He's literally the cuck. He's the masochist and the cuck. He definitely does a lot of sucking himself, though, that's for sure. That's pretty much the extent of his contribution to the game at this point, is the suck. So top lane holding on a little better, but gonna fall eventually. Middle lane has also fallen, which is why High Zealot went top lane. And now we have a group of 3 up here quite early into the game. Level 6, level 8, and level 8. So HKS not really doing too well on the levels. However, even though I had a sort of a lopsided lane, I did just hit level 9. I am actually going to go down here and grab some of the minions. I do see them up top, and I believe HKS will actually ping top. But I am not in a position to do anything about that, and it's actually a bit of a waste of time for me to go intercept it anyways, because, yeah, I'm probably not going to be able to do too much. That said, Q is in mid lane, which is the primary force that keeps their waves alive at this point with a healing wave. And I probably could stall the wave in our base, but I wouldn't have been able to even get here in time to do anything there anyways. So, Thyloli has a bird following him around. I intended to get Chain Dispel quite early for the intention of killing birds, because I didn't want them to know my location throughout the map. But there is the problem that I didn't know if it was going to work, and the birds probably had a shorter cooldown than Chain Dispel did. You might be thinking Chain Dispel would be great against High Zealot because he's going to get Mirror Image, right? It turns out it doesn't work against Mirror Image, so yeah. The players are very low level, and this is very early pushing. Yes, they do give some armor, that is correct. So yeah, that early upgrade actually does make a big difference for the Horde if you're being pushed by heroes, because of the armor type change, which comes from Fortified and not Spiked. Spiked gives armor, though. Interesting, I did not know that. I thought they took Fortified. This is not Fortified, it's Spiked Barricades. Spiked Barricades gives armor. More you know. But still, nonetheless, the armor is useful even without the change. Those are early upgrades you could get relatively cheap. So again, very low level, very vulnerable to these towers. Bill was already low on health. I just walked up and stunned him with a mini infernal and killed him. And Ricky is going to start sucking me, and I'm going to stun him. Now, something that felt really weird about this, I don't know if HK has changed it or if it was always like this, but you'll see the mini infernal comes down and the actual stun effect seems to be kind of delayed. And I don't know if there's a point in the game where that really makes a difference for me, but it definitely seemed a little weird. It definitely opened up, it was like a half second or so delay before the stun wore off. So HKS will unlearn Feral Spirit at some point and take Doomguard, and will eventually pick up Healing Wave. Meanwhile, Thyloli will take Infernal this time around. I don't know if he actually manages to land any kills with it. I guess we will see. So that push was repelled by Bill's death. and Q is still solo pushing down here. Not very effectually, since all he really does is provide auras and heal. He's not grouped up right now, which means that we're actually pushing them back a little bit. But it turns out I can't aim shit, and it is a little shorter range, so I won't land that very often. That said, if they land in some hits, they can do quite a bit of damage. So there goes the mana of all the units without mana. There's Impale, which looked like it might be good. Didn't get any real damage in though. Did drain all Ricky's mana, not that he really needed it anyways. Lots of damage going down to Bill here. All the mana for the Doomguard is gone, and most of my mana is gone too. I really struggled in these fights because I felt like I had a hard time pathing around minions. I'm getting sucked by a Frenchman. Just a few seconds of suck is enough to pretty much drain all of my mana. HKS was trying to snipe some of the minions. Oh, looks like he did snipe some creep camps over there. So Ricky barely able to escape. I didn't really have any mana for follow-up. I will only have the 2 offensive abilities for quite a while. So you can see I'll even grab one of those consumable things. There's Chain Dispel just to kill the bird. And I walked into that and I felt like a complete idiot because I wasn't paying attention. He killed my potion just like I do to Ricky all the time. And now I have no mana to follow up and potentially do something about this. So, but we're not really in much danger because they don't have any CC. So we just casually walk away with HKS having birds thrown at him every now and then. Throughout the rest of the map, we are being pushed right now. Bottom is not doing too badly given that Q is down there for quite a long time. Q has come to top lane and they've all grouped up, so we're seeing something that's really quite unusual. And this could be bad because all of them have some form of sustain. Except for Ricky, who, again, all Ricky does is drain. He literally does nothing other than that. So he's more of a nuisance. However, again, this is super early into the game, and while the towers don't yet have fortified armor, maybe HKS has even removed it for all I know, everything still is fairly tanky, right? And deals fairly reasonable health, and they don't have many minions. So I'm not really too scared of them. I just don't want them to drain my mana. And I'm not really looking for kills at this point either. I walked into that like a complete moron. I did not have a good game. I was still slowly waking up, and I was just not really paying attention. But I was watching the towers and noticing that towers were actually taking damage because the birds were always giving vision, and people were always running up here. So the mortar teams were constantly shooting them, and they stood a good chance of actually pushing. If they got to the barracks, I felt like we might actually just lose the game straight up. It may not happen very quickly, but we would be so far behind at that point, and they could just keep doing it. I did grab a Sobi mask fairly early on when I was in bottom lane because of the mana drain. And you can see Bill is focusing me and constantly draining what little bit of mana I have. I walk into that, but I don't have any mana, so it doesn't really matter. I'm just here just to kind of be a body, and that's about it. They are focusing on me quite a lot, and even like over-focusing me to some extent, because while Bill can drain my mana, it's not likely he's going to actually kill me unless I really misplay. So Thought Lolly was in mid, pushed it out, comes back. Their push is still here, but Q is now just about out of mana in spite of the birds puking into his mouth as birds do. And they don't really have a lot of siege ability. So it's going to be slow going. That said, it looks like they're going to get at least 1, maybe 2 towers here. So I kind of walked up there with the intent of killing Ricky, but even though I get a full combo on him, it's really obvious I'm not high enough to get through all of his mana shield and his health. And the healing was just keeping him alive for so long. He was running back into it and everything. Loli got off a good Infernal as Ricky was running back and forth, followed by Impale. Mini Infernal comes down, you can see that delay there, and Ricky finally dies. Everybody disperses. Bill had already left them, which was probably part of the deciding factor, is he wasn't there to drain everybody's mana on contact. So their push kind of just dissolved. Immediately we go down here to kill the Hydras. It's mostly just for the money, but also to try to get some of that upgrade potential in the minions. So we should see a very slight advantage for the Horde at some point. They should get some upgrades a little bit sooner than the Alliance. And if you just keep this up and you're able to control the camps, then that advantage will grow and grow and grow. So there is a reason, especially to keep control of the Hydras and the Tide Hunters. I believe that the upgrade rate increase scales based on the equipped camps. So try to put some of that into the other parts of the map, some value, right? So the peasants are a little slower, and they do give more bounty than they used to. I believe that was a change I mentioned in the last cast, though. So no one can buy anything yet. A blast staff did get dropped by the Hydras, which is kind of nice, especially fairly early on, where it can contribute a little bit of damage, especially when I'm spending so much time without mana, but I'm tanky enough to kind of stick around. So it's not a lot, but it'll help. So Bill has just been pumping mana burn, diffusion flare, and feedback. He is just completely dedicated to his cause. Very, very specialized. Their team almost resembles a fairly synergistic team, right? Because you have Bill, who's sort of on like support. You have Q, who is also support with healing. And you have High Zealot, who has support and then some damage. But High Zealot doesn't really do a lot of damage, though. He's kind of a hybrid, and he doesn't really do a lot of damage at this point. And Ricky exists. Thought Lolly decided to walk in and die miserably. And it kind of looks like he maybe got hit by a CC. It's possible that High Zealot has Boulder at this point. But, I mean, he died to a huge mass of units. That didn't really do too much damage at all. But, yeah, a little bit. So, I believe at this stage, Lolly unlearns Spiked Carapace, if he hadn't already, and then takes Berserk, if I'm not mistaken. Brings me back to when I first got into TGS and we played with Arcan and I believe Cheese Child. And I think it was Arcan went the Windwalk Berserk Crypt Lord or something like that, and showed us just how absolutely broken balance-wise this map really was, because back then, the Crypt Lord could pop out of Windwalk and kill you in like 2 or 3 hits quite early into the game, and it was nearly impossible to control it. The map has changed quite a lot since then. But I did have a moment of nostalgia when I knew Lolly was at least doing some kind of melee damage build. Meanwhile, Bill is taking Endurance Aura, so they have a lot of support on their team, but they don't really have any dedicated damage dealers. High Zealot's really the closest you're going to get. And Ricky, I'm not sure. He may have had some long-term goal for this build, but he did this in the last game, the game I did not cast. And he never tried to advance the build beyond this point in that game either. He just sat there and drained and then would die, kind of like he is now. So Q pulls out his ultimate Donald J. Trump card, and that is Big Bad Voodoo. We never see these kinds of spells in this game because they're channeled. But Q's team is all support and is constantly pushing, and we don't have any hard CC except for Little Inferno, which is very short range, and then Actual Inferno on Lolly, who is rarely in these engagements to begin with. Q probably feels quite safe taking that, and as you level it up, the range on it will actually get quite high, and it lasts for a long time. Everything else is invincible. This does, however, have consequences. Minions will focus buildings. For example, if everything else, all their targets are otherwise unattackable. So this looks pretty bad at this point. The remainder of these initial towers and defenders are being focused down. These guys are actually spell immune now, so you can't easily CC them. But that doesn't really matter. The enemy team doesn't have too much spell damage against them anyways. They're going to slowly force these down, and we're going to be in big trouble soon. But again, they don't have their mana burn here, and I have a way to stop them from casting spells on me. It's called Bladestorm. So Bladestorm's damage is really not that good, but it's a period of time in which they can't do anything with you except maybe sleep you. And I use it primarily just to kill the minion wave there and kind of force them back. This gives HKS the chance to move forward, and Loli a chance to show up as well. Loli, however, is still back in the base, so it's just us two forcing them back. Loli will probably end up going bottom lane, actually. So Ricky decides to sit and drain, and the healing is not enough for that. Blast Staff is working wonders on Q. We're not likely to kill him, though. He is quite fat. As you can see, that's a case where the stun looked like it could have hit, but there is a little bit of a delay to it, so he just kept going on. At this stage, Flame Strike is finally at the stage where I can start killing the minions underneath his healing. High Zealot wants to fight, but his damage is not really at a point where he can deal with us. And HKS has been pumping up Healing Wave. That said, I didn't really want to stick around because I wasn't going to kill him either. HKS will tell me that he fucked up the Doomguard level 2 and level 3. They can't cast Doom on any of the neutral creeps. And Bill just died instantly. Like, I thought Lole just walked up and killed him. Because Bill doesn't have anything except mana drain. And yeah, I thought Lole wasn't even missing any health. He literally just walked up and killed him. And that's going to be a possible problem for some of them who like to split push like Bill, because yeah, he just has mana drain. He can't actually stop people from killing him other than his one heal. He doesn't have any escapes either. He'll be depending on items to become really tanky and much of a threat. Fire Loli already has Infernal level 3 on top of it. So if he does manage to land that, it's a fair bit of damage. Meanwhile, I took Bladestorm, and I will level that up as well, but I won't use it very often. In fact, most of the time I'll forget I even have it. It does cost quite a bit of mana. See, lots of skill upgrades coming up. Death Coil to level 9, Fork Lightning to level 9. Big Bad Voodoo, level 2. Ricky is over here draining mana. I don't know. I can't really explain Ricky. He's French. I'm not really sure. Like, given the chance, if he actually bought items, he would probably become extremely difficult to kill, but he doesn't actually do anything, though. So that Infernal lands. Obviously, he's better landing it than I do. Ricky's already lost all of his mana. Small Infernal comes, and I believe War Stomp came out, and he's just dead. Pretty much what happened to Bill in middle. Except this time Ricky was completely on his own inside the enemy base, so we were all there. So we're going to clear that out again. Thought Loli did actually buy some items. He bought some health. He has the Orb of Corruption, which reduces enemy armor, which they do get a little bit of armor, but especially when Devotion Aura gets leveled up. It's not a bad item. So they're also clearing the Hydras here. Kind of slowly, but they're getting them down. I believe I'm looking to shop right away. So I'll grab a bong right away. HKS will not actually shop at all. He will not buy. And it's in part because he has Healing Wave and I don't. And also because he's melee and not really using offensive spells in general, just the summons. So he's gonna sit on, I believe he levels his own brilliance, or yes he does. His is level 5, mine is level 3. So he's gonna go kind of like a low econ and hang back more often than he did in the other games. And it's just gonna give me money at some point. So that Loli is still like out there solo pushing, but in this particular game, because of the way that he's built and the way the enemy is built, it's actually quite dangerous for them to contest him, because he is in a position where he can be aggressive. He can dive them anywhere in the lanes and be quite safe about it, because he basically counters their entire team except for High Zealot at this point. No one else on the enemy team can fight him because nobody else on the enemy team deals damage. That rain of fire actually hit pretty hard. Ricky lost quite a bit of health due to that. So we're looking to push here. This is quite a strong push. Is against. You'll see me throwing out Chain Dispel if you know what to look for. It's very small. And I will just, anytime I have it up and I see a bird, I just kill the bird. I don't care how close it is to expiring. So 2 Doom Guards, they do not have any wave clear. They don't have any damage. HKS charges in and kills himself. And yeah. I don't know if I lowly killed someone that missed that or not. But yeah, they don't have any wave clear at all. Only High Zealot and his Forked Lightning. So our push there died, but we did kill 2 towers. We returned a lot of the damage they dealt to us. I guess HGS was like trying to micro the Infernals or something, and his hero is like, I'm just gonna charge into this wall of everything. Anti-magic shell. What's that from though? Oh, it might be from the owls. So Ricky is thinking of buying. He does buy a surgical mask. Yeah, it would be nice. Like, I generally don't like automation in games, but in this where the summons don't live very long in general, it would be nice if there's a way you could automatically assign them to a hotkey group when they spawn, and the new summons get automatically assigned to it, like the quill beasts and birds and stuff, especially. But also like Infernals, because in some of these fights, those units may only have mana for like 1 or 2 seconds after they spawn, right? And all the dispels in CC, like, I don't know. It's an idea anyways. So Ricky reduces their armor, but the only person on their team that's actually going to be dealing any kind of physical damage is actually going to be High Zealots. So presently, he's on his own, and he does have level 7 Brilliance Aura, and he's fucking dead. Wait, where is he getting 100 fucking bonus damage from? Is that Chemical Rage? Yeah, no? +7, where is he getting? Oh, right, engineering upgrade. Aha. He got a few upgrades, yeah, so he has decent damage with all of his buffs up. Because engineering upgrade was nerfed, the movement speed bonus on it was reduced. So we did increase the base attack for it a little bit. So that plus shredding any armor that does exist allowed Thyloli to actually do pretty reasonable damage. It is also worth mentioning, a part of that is the fact that Thyloli is level 20. Well, I've been grouped up with HKS, and as a result, our stats, level-wise, aren't really that much higher than the enemy team. Thyloli has been solo almost the entire game, constantly pushing solo, and most often not even being contested. And then he's had at least 2 hero kills to himself. If we look at this, yeah, 2. Yeah, he's been able to max out those abilities and get that base damage. So his Chemical Rage is level 8. And I don't know about engineering upgrade. I remember he got it pretty high early on. So, yeah, there's Bladestorm again. I'm trying to kill Ricky, but you'll notice that it's really hard. It's not really doing that. It wasn't doing any damage. What? I don't know. Maybe the radius is a lot lower than I think it is. So I might actually die here. It's quite possible. Nope, I got away. High Zealot doesn't do enough damage yet. It only has the Boulder and Fork Lightning. So a little risky, but I thought I was at least going to kill Ricky. It looked like I should have. Q, again, kind of on his own, but not really able to do much on his own besides slowly push the wave by healing it. His Devotion Aura is still only level 1, which is a really critical one that they would really want to have against Thyaloli at this point. Bill has arrived. HKS now has no mana, along with all of his minions. There's this giant stack of birds there. 2-2 on those. 2-2 on these. And our minions are also the same. So they're pretty even right now. Both teams have been clearing the top camps. So I noticed that Loli came back into base with like 0 health. And I'm pretty sure he came from the shop area. So I was like, well, I do want him to get strong. It's obviously he's not feeding this game and we need him anyways. Right. We gotta give him the tools he needs to succeed. So at one point he's gonna give me money. I don't know if I was at this point, but I'm actually gonna give him money. Like a couple thousand gold. And I'm gonna go clear the Hydras for him and also so I can get another bong too. So I was never aware before if he knew that that shop was there or not, because it never seemed like that he was buying the higher end items in the earlier games. But I explicitly just brought him over here just to make sure that he knew they were there, so that, because we could still lose this game really easily. We've managed to fend off their pushes thus far, but all they have to do is actually start dealing damage and we're in serious shit. So I noticed he was getting kills, and I wanted to make sure that he was in a position to punish people like Ricky who never buy items. So there is a push down here. There is Big Bad Voodoo, but Q's taking so much damage from this. He's just a little too close in the base. And we're going to charge for him. There goes all of our mana. It's all gone. That literally fully drained my mana. I might have casted one spell, but I'm not sure if I did or not. Everything is gone. So we're just all charging after him. And it's pretty obvious we're not going to catch him. So I'm like, why are we chasing him? There's that really delayed stun. So we just turned for Bill. I think Bill didn't necessarily realize that we can just turn around and murder him. Which is precisely what happened. So Ricky died up here again. Yeah, same story. Just pops his things and Ricky dies. He does have an axe now and the cap off for attack speed. With the extra base attack he's getting from his abilities, he can definitely go for that. So between the two Doom Guards, HKS has pretty good AoE. If he knows to micro them and they have mana. He did boost the damage on rate of fire, and they seem to be quite capable of taking out the wave. However, High Zealot is also buying items. Picked up a blast out, probably off of one of the Hydras, and he bought an axe there. I did not realize he was buying axes at this point. I didn't know he was going physical damage at all. He will not take spell damage for his Fork Lightning. And I believe that he also is the one who took Death Coil, if I'm not mistaken. But he won't take spell damage for those. He will take physical damage, quite possibly because he wanted to be a little bit more tanky. And we've been, or at least the two of us have been taking damage, being Thyaloli and myself. The axe will give him armor, which will help him out against Thyaloli. He may have felt that the spell damage was too risky when we had that kind of damage on our group. So this is actually, I think, the first time I personally saw Big Bad Voodoo. I might have seen it in the base, but it may not have registered. HKS said it was hard for him to tell if it was on heroes or not. With Ricky, it blends into the mana barrier. So if you don't have any minions nearby to judge, then he can make that mistake, but I didn't really have that mistake too much. It's just, I couldn't really fathom anybody actually took that, but it definitely would help in the right circumstance. It's just, Q's in the unfortunate position where most people in this team don't do any damage, and making them invulnerable doesn't really help them because they're already being sustained by Healing Wave, Healing Spray, and Death Coil, and Mana Shield, and everything like that, right? There's not really a huge amount of gain by using that, especially when they're looking to push. But if he uses it at the right time, it certainly can be very strong. You see, Ricky is nowhere near able to tank these with Mana Shield right now. He needs a full inventory, and he's really behind on items. So we just kind of ignore Q. We kind of like taser him. And Ricky is heading somewhere. So High Zealot is pushing up here. Looks like he kind of maybe wants to show up down here. Thought Lolly is in mid. Did win and went back and picked up a head barrel actually. HKS forgot to put he was going to put like 200, 250 or so flat health on the head barrel. So I was looking to try to kill Bill here, but man, I didn't really do much damage, so. Plus the vision is really awkward. It doesn't look like it in the replay, but Bill anywhere near those corners and a lot of other areas, the vision was just constantly fighting me, and it was really hard to see anything. I would often find coins under here too. In fact, I think. No, but there was coins underneath this thing when I came in. It may have been when we came here earlier. There was a coin I had selected, but I couldn't figure out where it was. So there's Big Bad Voodoo, but he's in not really a good spot for it. The minions are going to be hitting him, and he takes a lot of damage. So High Zealot at this point has 2 axes, and I don't realize that at all. And he doesn't really have like a physical build, like Critical Strike or Berserk or anything like that, but they make him tanky. Devotion Aura has been leveled up. He's sitting at, you know, like 18.5 armor. That's fairly reasonable damage reduction that'll keep him safe from the minions. Plus the health and everything else. I kind of walked up and I wasn't sure why. And I just lose all my mana, so I was like, well. There wasn't really a lot to gain here, but I kind of wanted to keep them here as long as possible while the other lane's pushed. Especially if thought Lolly was going to be elsewhere on the map doing something. HKS kind of like runs in, but they don't really punish him for that. They can't really. High Zealot is no longer there. He's gone elsewhere to deal with the other lanes. To be fair, there's not much we can do to kill them here either. They're taking damage, but so long as Q has mana, he can keep them alive. This is so slow. HKS is healing our minions. Ricky is like draining random shit. Bill's just like trying to get past them, but they can't. He's so fat. So Flame Strike, I do not believe is maxed at this point, although it may be close, like level 9. Even if it was, I wouldn't have been able to kill anyone. I was hoping to catch someone in it, but God, the mana drain is just so crazy. Yeah, at this point I didn't realize he had items like that, and I figure we can fight it, but we actually can't. Bill has like no health. If I had mana, I could have turned around and just instantly killed him. And I figured that meant we were in a good spot because I saw how low he was and that he was going back. But what I didn't realize is that, yeah, High Zealot does a lot of damage. I wasn't really paying attention to his attacks on me because it should have been telling right away something was wrong, that I was taking that much when I had as much health as I did. So I died. And HKS stands to die too. Oh, he escapes. Yeah, the axes do give some strength. And I thought I would have been able to wear him down, especially with HKS healing me, but it was just not happening. And it became obvious why when I actually checked his inventory. So that wasn't very good. It was clear I was going to have to be a little more careful and get more damage. So I believe I will start getting... it's around this time, or maybe, again, maybe a little bit earlier, I thought Lola is going to give me a bunch of money. And HKS will also give me a bunch of money. And I'm actually going to give Thyololi back about 2,000 gold. And I'm going to give HKS back about 2,000 gold too. Because I don't know if it's at this point when I revive or around here. It'll be when we go to the shop. I'm going to be sitting on 15,000 gold. Which was more than I could spend on just that shop because I wanted to also have access. So I was tanky, and then put the rest in the bongs. So Ricky is doing what Ricky does, which is building some guard towers here, but he has no items. Right? And Thyololi is now sitting on 2 axes. So he hasn't been very present in this game. He has been solo farming most of the game. And the few people that ran across them at this stage have died. And for once it's working, right? He isn't some squishy lich that's like getting himself killed every now and then. Since he's the one with all the physical damage and a degree of tankiness that has, you know, an inventory that's nearly full at this point, he is stronger than anybody on their team. In terms of stats, for sure. And so long as he plays it well, they can't do anything to stop him without High Zealot. So we were shopping there. High Zealot came down here to fight, probably to shop himself. And at this stage, that's when I had a lot of money. And so my inventory got kind of filled up. High Zealot wisely disengages, nearly dying in the process. Ricky chooses a very peculiar direction to flee in, given that we're not actually killing him very well right now. But Ricky dies in a fire, and HKS takes the kill. So yeah, HKS just wanted some money back for the surgical mask. And then, otherwise the rest went to me, and a chunk of Thyololi's went to me. But I'm going to give him back that money at some point whenever I see him at the shop again. It may have already happened for all I know. And you're going to start to see how this game is going to shape up now. Q has no items. Remember, Q usually buys items. High Zealot is the only person on their entire team that is buying items. Bill has nothing, and he just got fucking annihilated by Thyololi in his own base. Q has nothing, and he usually buys items in these games. And Ricky is French. Ricky knows there's items there. He was buying stuff. But, not doing him too good. So I think I'll give Thyololi money at this point when he goes there. Yeah, this might have been it. I was reaching this stage where I needed the shop cooldown to be up, and I was debating if I wanted to go there or not. And they might be pulling High Zealot for all I know. Maybe I'll check the score screen when this is done. It would explain why he's also sitting on nearly full inventory. But, again, he didn't really build for physical.
He doesn't have crit. He doesn't have bash. He doesn't have any of the attack speed steroids. He has mirror image, which hasn't been very helpful for him. It helped a little bit early on. And then he has fork lightning, which is not getting any of the spell damage bonuses that mine are getting. And then I think he has the chain death coil, which again, not getting any of the spell damage bonuses. So in terms of spell stat scaling, it's not going anywhere. In terms of physical stat scaling, Thaloli is a lot stronger, other than the fact he's melee. So Thaloli just goes all in. He is gonna die now, though. He's in the middle of their base. Or does he? He gets away! 60 health, he's gone! So, yeah. Someone almost... Oh, that was a mirror image. I was gonna say someone almost died to the Doom Guard, but it was a mirror. So, HKS is just kind of here. Thaloli went back. And... I'm not actually sure where I was. Oh, you can hardly see me on the map. I was shot. I think I was getting skills or something. I should have Bladestorm level 3 by now, but again, I don't use it very often. I wasn't having any success even cutting down Ricky's shield with it. It was more like a defensive thing, but since I wasn't being targeted that much by spells other than Diffusion Flare and the occasional Fork Lightning, I just didn't really feel like I needed to use it. Reincarnate probably would have been a better option. Although I feel like, I don't know, they don't have much CC, so Reincarnate could certainly give you a good chance of getting away. I don't think against such a sustained heavy comp that it would really give you another chance to kill someone, though. So it's possible Mass Teleport would have been nice, too. But this wasn't a very mobile game. Everybody was kind of tending towards top. Only really Thaloli was roaming around. And then people like counter pushing against him. So Q is there, and I got stunned, but I am tanky now. There's Bladestorm. I'm just trying to deal with Ricky. HKS is gonna almost die to Hyzal in the process. It's not doing any damage. The fucking wolves are doing like 5 times the amount of damage. It was so useless. I don't know. I thought it might scale off of spell damage, but I don't think it does. It might be kind of stupid if it did, though, because it'll be per tick, right? It might be too strong. But for a level 3 ultimate, the damage felt like it could have been ever so slightly higher. Given, again, Ricky has nothing. So, other than that, though, Voodoo definitely helped them a lot there. It absorbed a lot of our engage, and it really slows down our advance. But eventually it came down, and there is some stuns. Quantum Menace will get Rocket, and Hyzal just gets fucked. We actually deal damage. We have 2 people that deal damage, and HKS's summons have both AoE and mana burn and some other stuff, so that all adds up too. I have a full inventory at this point. 2 axes, 4 bongs. And we have a couple forms of CC. Not a lot, but some. If HKS can land cripple even for a few seconds, that's very strong. And then 2 infernals. So the CC is kind of like sort of even with a little bias to us, but the damage is massively in our favor. And all of us have some degree of sustain as well, even if it isn't as strong as a group. Bill has Locust Swarm, but I don't think they can target me when I'm Bladestorming. Bladestorm is very, very strong defensively, especially against their composition. So we're 3-3. They are 2-2. The upgrade advantage is now in our favor because we've been pushing the creep camps a lot harder. And we're all pretty fat, and the summons are pretty fat, so we can sit here for a very long time. Ricky runs up, gets touched, all of his mana's gone. His mana shield is level 6, and he never bought Brilliance Aura. He does have 2 masks, though. So his mana regeneration isn't god-awful, but he still doesn't do anything! There's no damage! He just drains mana, that's all he does! He took Blightstorm too! What a cunt! I'm not even sure what Loli's talking about half the time, so long as he's just murdering them. He's clearing our base right now, though. But even so, the two of us are just... They don't have damage. They can't... They only have one person who does any wave clear. It's basically the same thing that happened in the other game. I was the only person with wave clear. HKS was drained. I can't remember what Loli did in the other game. I think it was like Windwalk and Thunderclap and Warstomp, which was reasonably threatening early on, but he was way too thirsty in that game. And we weren't able to secure kills later on, and we weren't ever grouped up. Now, we haven't been trying to get him to group up with us in this, because what he's been doing has been sufficient in itself, and nobody can really deal with him. If he wants to split push, we can handle that. We can 2v4 them at this point. And if anybody wants to try to contest the split push, they're gonna get forced to the lane because he's that far ahead. So it really worked out, and he definitely did better in this game than he usually does. They kind of played into that though, right? Like, they don't have anyone on their team except for Hyzella that's even gonna be able to try to fight him. Nobody else on their team is getting any fucking items. Ricky has some mana regen, but no damaging abilities to make use of that mana. It's just all for mana shield. I'm not really sure what his plan was. Q took this, the rocket thing to try to have something. But, yeah, this push is gonna be nearly impossible to stop at this point. We're not really getting kills, but it's just a slow crawl to damnation. We get very close to getting kills in, but it's pretty hard to kill them. I did kill some peasants that were over there. Now here's a good use, Big Bad Voodoo. We're not really in a position to stop this. I don't really want to run forward into the castle, which very well can kill me, and has shown it will be more than willing to in the past. And the range on this is high enough that we can't really engage them in the front either. So this kind of forces us back and lets them try to kill the wave. It's just a little too late. The damage is done. And Loli did go back. He didn't commit to that push. He might actually be AFK or something. Or he might be looking at items, I'm not sure, but he didn't stick bottom lane, but...
Our allies' town is under siege. Our town is under siege. Job done. Job done.
Yeah! You kind of need items when your enemy has none, or has a full inventory. And if you have none, then... I don't know about Ricky, you know, very French. I did have chain lightning in this point as well. I do not believe it is maxed out, but it was a little bit of extra damage. Oh, that was almost a kill right there from the delayed stun. He walked into it. So minions are kind of pushing everywhere. Thaloli went mid this time. Of course, physical damage, gonna take down those buildings really fast. Still kind of just keeping them here, letting the other lanes push. Now, when Q uses Big Bad Voodoo here, the minions, since they can't attack things that are invulnerable, are going to focus on the towers. The heroes are the tankiest part of this group. So if you really wanted to delay, you wouldn't actually use Big Bad Voodoo at this point. You would find some other way to beef up the heroes because, yeah, the minions will just instantly turn around and deal. That's why the towers are in such bad shape. It's not just because the minions were attacking them before, but because when we got forced back by Big Bad Voodoo, all the minions just piled onto the towers without regard for any other targets because they were invulnerable. I actually thought Q unlearned Owl because I killed it every chance I got, but he's gonna say it was too much to micro. Bill just almost dies. He actually gets away. Epic war stomp. Oh, and no mana. HKS died. Walked forward and just died. Too busy microing the Doomguard. So again, everybody is invulnerable, but that just means the minions, all the siege in particular, are gonna just pile onto the towers, and this is actually hastening their defeat. Not a really big game changer in this, but in the future, it is something to keep in mind. All the minions are going to focus on the buildings if you use this in your base. And it could result in you losing production structures in a much closer game. So yeah, that game looked pretty scary early on when the inventories were more balanced. And as we reached mid-game, it became clear that only High Zealot wanted to put stuff in his inventory. And the results really show. I didn't look too much at the creep scores or anything like that, but obviously Thaloli pretty much split pushing the entire game is at the highest, even though he was physical. I'm not too far behind, but I am noticeably far behind. The Alliance have by far and beyond the highest creep kills out of the two because of us pushing so hard at the end. When we look at the hero kills, it is actually Thaloli who's number 2. He has the second highest kills, and a lot of those were solo lane kills. Me being at 8 because I was the other damage dealer and fighting a lot more often. On the enemy team, however, Ricky has 2 kills, which were early on, and then Bill has 1 kill, and the Alliance has 2, I believe both of which were HKS. I can't remember who killed HKS the first time. But, yeah, it really shows a lot. And we go to them, and actually, there was no trading at all for High Zealot. Nobody gave him anything. That's actually really fascinating. I don't know about this, though. I believe this resource trade may be from the upgrade triggers or something else. I'm not really sure. Who gave the Horde 10,000 gold? That's received, isn't it? That's received. Somebody gave the Horde 10,000 gold. Was that Thaloli? I'm not sure about that.